So the new Captain America skin just dropped for Avengers Infinity War, and this looks sick. Now, if you want a quick guide on how to do well with Captain America so you can use this skin, then stick around for the rest of this video. So we're going to start off with the basics first, then we'll get on into some advanced tips. But first of all, we've got his melee attack. Now, first of all, Captain America's melee is in two parts. The first part is an actual melee strike, which is 2 punches, and these deal 40 damage. So the first 2 punches deal 40 damage, then you get a timer where you can start throwing shields which deal 45 damage. So as you can see here, his melee attack turns into a ranged attack, which is absolutely insane, and it does more damage as well. The next ability he has is the energy saw, which he throws the shield and it can ricochet onto enemies. Now it does 70 damage, but a 20% reduction on every time it hits the second enemy. But as you can see, you don't need to hit the targets directly, which is the really cool thing about this. As long as you're in their general direction, then you actually do still land the hits, and that is what people are using right now, so they don't need to be super accurate to get some finishes. His next ability is a pretty straightforward one as well, which is a dash, which you can dash for up to 12 meters. So as long as you're 12 meters away, you can dash, and it deals 30 damage, which is not a lot of damage at all, to be honest. That's less damage than his melee attack. Captain America's next ability is his shield, which basically blocks incoming damage and deflects it back to the enemy player. So it's got 400 HP, but as you can see, it's deflecting the enemy bullets back, and sometimes it might actually hit them. So Captain America's next ability is his most important one, and that is the sprint. As you can see here, he can sprint around the map basically endlessly. He doesn't run out of sprint or anything like that. And the good thing about this is that it allows you to move 33% quicker, but not only that, it gives you the fearless leap, which allows you to jump up and dive strike enemies. If you directly dive strike an enemy, you deal 30 damage. So as you can see here, you land 30 damage on an enemy if you dive strike them. But not only does the sprint allow you to sprint around, jump up and deal damage, but it ties in with another ability, which is his shield. So you can actually sprint and shield at the exact same time. And this is one of the fastest moving shield heroes in the game. Captain America's final ability is his ultimate, which basically is the freedom charge. So as you can see here, it grants yourself extra shields. It also gives your teammates extra shields if you run near them too. It also gives you a movement boost. So when it comes to using your attacks, if you use the diving strike, so as you can see, fearless leap, dive strike, and it launches enemies up into the air, so it's slightly different to just the basic attack. Now do keep in mind, this is not giving you any extra damage whatsoever, but it is giving you insane movement speeds and keeping you alive much longer. So that is exactly what this is supposed to do. So before we move on to the next section, which is going to be the additional tips and combos, I do want to show you my button layout for Captain America. So I've got hold to raise shield and hold to dash. I've got jump set to X, obviously as normal. We've got Sentinel Strike as R1, Living Legend is L2, we've got the melee attack as standard, Vibranium Saw is R2, Leading Dash is L1, and the rush is square. Now the reason why I've swapped all these buttons around is because a lot of people on keyboard and mouse are doing insane combos, and it's so hard to pull off on controller. So first of all, what is the combo for Captain America? Now his main combo that everyone's using, all the pros are using, is his sprint, jump into the air, dash onto the enemy. Then what you want to do is animation cancel all of his primary attacks, and that is basically it. Leap, dash, animation cancel, Vibranium Saw if you really need to get the finish, and if they're trying to escape. Now you're actually killing a lot quicker by animation cancelling, and this is how you want to do it. So basically you're pressing the sprint button and then using the melee attack, and you're basically interchanging these buttons not as quick as you can, but in a good rhythm. So sprint, animation cancel, sprint, animation cancel, sprint, animation cancel. Once you get better at it, you can do it a lot quicker. And you want to make sure you initiate with the sprint. So as you can see, sprint and then dive in. That is obviously the starting part of this. And to make this dive in and sprint so much easier, you need to have it set to hold so that it cancels when you want it to cancel, obviously when you release the button. And also, I think just having the R1 as your melee just makes it a lot easier to aim as well. That's just my personal preference, and I think it just works extremely well. Another combo you can use, which is super easy to do as well. So if you sprint, then jump, then use the saw, then the diving strike, and then start attacking the enemy, you've dealt as much damage as you can before you even get to the opponent. The saw doesn't require much aiming anyway, so you can actually just aim it roughly in their direction, and then you're going to get as much damage done as you possibly can before you even reach them. So before we move on into the gameplay portion, I do want to quickly talk about Captain America's shield. Now, When you're using it, as you can see, it deflects damage back, and it only deflects 50% damage back. But you can deflect sleeps, stuns, ultimates, anything pretty much with this shield, which is great. But the main tip I wanted to give you is not about what it can and can't deflect. There's tons of videos out there about what this can actually do, and you can check those out as well. But what it actually does do well is if you're in point blank range, then that is when you want to deflect stuff. You don't want to deflect stuff all the way back here because you're not guaranteed to hit the enemy back. As you can see here, it's deflecting randomly. So you want to deflect pretty much as soon as you're up in the enemy's face. Let's get on into the gameplay portion of this video now. So when it comes to positioning as Captain America, you want to attack the enemy's backline. You want to aim for all the kind of low HP players or the low HP heroes, mainly their healers. That is your main job as Captain America, take out the enemy healers. Now, you've got a lot of abilities to do this with, but you need to make sure you're managing your rotations well when it comes to cooldowns. And the one thing you want to make sure you always have is either your sprint jump ready, so you can dash into the ground, or your standard dash, because one needs to be used to initiate the fight, and the other one needs to be used to escape from the fight. So now when it comes to the animation cancelling portion of this, you only want to animation cancel if you're in point blank range. If you're literally like so close that you're touching the enemy player, that's the only time you should be using this. If you're going further distances and going further away, you want to make sure you're aiming your throws a bit more accurately instead to make sure you're landing your hits, because that is the kind of main issue I had when I first started playing Captain America, is that I just wanted to animation cancel constantly. The next thing when you are attacking the enemy's backline is you want to be using up the enemy's abilities. Because you have a 400 HP shield that can tank pretty much anything, to be honest, then you want to be using abilities like the Luna Snow Freeze Ball, or you want to be looking out for Mantis's Sleep. These are abilities enemies will use if they are high level against you as Captain America to slow you down, which is obviously the main counters for them in the first place, but you can basically block them with your shield anyway. On top of that is Shield Run, so when you sprint and use the shield, can be used so much to initiate fights. You're basically running straight in whilst taking no damage, then you jump up and you start attacking the enemy players. One of Captain America's most useful abilities is the Saw Shield. Now, when you're in these fights, you're very close quarters, you're doing all your damage and all that kind of stuff, and if you need to get a quick finish on an opponent, then this Saw Shield is going to be saving your life all the time when it comes to getting quick finishes or starting a quick fight and just dealing that initial burst of damage. Finally, when it comes to his ultimate ability, there's no kind of good or bad time to use this. Because of the way Captain America plays, he's a very dive hero in the first place, and even though you do grant your teammates shields, if you're basically diving the backline and you need to use this to keep yourself alive, then use it selfishly. That is my personal opinion on his ultimate in the first place, but it is a support ultimate, so it's really strange. You can use it if you're holding an objective and you just need the extra shields on your team, and if you are playing very close together. But if you are diving that backline, you need to stay alive, then pop your ultimate. That's the best way to use it in my opinion. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.